You're listening to Now I've Heard Everything. Conversations with the icons of our time.
In some places, the Celtics actually have as close to a third of the house. Here you are, the home team, and there's a third of the people there rooting for the Celtics.
NBA Hall of Famer Bob Cousy, today on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson. He's been called one of the 50 greatest NBA players ever. Point guard Bob Cousy played for the Boston Celtics for 13 seasons, helping them to 6 NBA titles. He was the NBA's most valuable player in 1957 and was a 13-time All-Star, inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 1971. Now, Cousy attributes much of his personal success to the storied franchise he was part of, the so-called Celtic Mystique. In fact, his 1988 book was called Cousy on the Celtic Mystique. And that's when I had the chance to sit down for a few minutes with this NBA great. Now, in this interview, which we did in December of '88, you'll hear reference to the Miami Heat, who at that point were an NBA expansion team, off to an 0-17 start, which is still the record for the worst start for an NBA team. In just a moment, my conversation with Bob Cousy.
Have you ever opened a time capsule? You're about to. This interview is from national radio personality Bill Thompson's 30-year interview archive. Enjoy.
So here now, from 1988, Bob Cousy.
The Celtics have developed a cult following around the world that's spooky. And as I go to speak here or there, anywhere in the country, I mean, and if you do Q&A, the questions are, what is this Celtic mystique? How did they dominate, a very competitive area of endeavor, 16 out of 31 years? How did they win 11 championships in 13 years? And so anyway, this is the type of mystique that we identify with the Celtics and what I obviously deal with in this book, Bill.
It really gives you a psychological edge when you can go into a game, when you can start the season and you are the Celtics.
Oh, absolutely. They used to say that about putting on Yankee pinstripes and something. Mm-hmm. The guy was transformed. The mediocre talent is transformed into a Superman. It's not quite that. It's only a psychological advantage in sports, in my judgment, if you've got the talent to exploit that advantage. I mean, if all of a sudden the ship falls apart and the opponent comes in and on that storied parquet floor and looks at all those flags up there and is intimidated, it's only of value to you if you can exploit that intimidation by having enough strength to go out and push that guy around who perhaps now is going to underachieve because he is psychologically impressed. He's been reading since he was a little boy about the Celtics and what they've accomplished in their championships, and now all of a sudden here he is a pro and he's coming in to play in this place and against this team. But if you're a 2 on a 10 scale, it's not going to make a darn bit of difference. You're still.
You'd almost think that it would work the other way too, though. If a Jerry West comes in, if a Michael Jordan comes in, and they think, here I am, I'm going to beat these Boston Celtics right here on this parquet floor.
It works that way on the road, Bill. This is an added hurdle or challenge that the Celtics have to contend with on the road, because you not only deal with this kind of hostility by the players, but obviously the fans. Celtic games, it's worse trying to get a ticket to a Celtic game on the road than it is at home. So that the people buy their Celtic tickets. The Celtics are only into any of the Midwest or Western cities once. So, So anyway, you're dealing with this crescendo of hostility. And in the past, the Celtics have always responded to that, once again, because they had the strength to do it. This year, they don't. Obviously, with Bird down, DJ's been hurt, etc., it's easy to make excuses. They're still a good team, but not good enough, generally speaking, to overcome now this added hostility that's built into being a Boston Celtic, and the Celtics are coming into town, and a win against the Celtics makes your season type thing. So on the road, yes, it's almost on one hand, when they had the strength, which was up to last year really, they could deal with this. This year, when they're at less than full strength, it's more of a problem. But at home, it's still the intimidating factor is stronger than the additional motivation by not so much a Michael Jordan. We're talking about a unique superstar who's going to function anywhere. It's not going to, he's going to shake that mystique and everything else off and go do his thing. In fact, he got 52 on his last visit to Boston. So, no, he's never been intimidated, I don't think. But as a unit, I think this does work in your favor at home.
Of course, now, as you also point out in your book, as Tommy Heinsohn does in his, there are a lot of people who now you've said there are a lot of people who love the Celtics. They fall in love with the mystique, but there are an equal number who seem to hate the Celtics for whatever reason they can think of to hate them.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. If you stay in this society, which is highly competitive, as we all know, Bill, in any field, whatever it happens to be, on one hand, you gain a certain amount of respect by being on top and staying there. But I'll tell you, don't make a hell of a lot of friends, I don't think, unfortunately, because that built-in jealousy is there, and it's an underdog society. We, outside of Boston, in this case, who are involved in sports, you pick up your paper. I go through the same thing on a daily basis in the morning. As I go through the hockey scores and the football scores and baseball during the season, I'm happy to see the weaker team win, or upset the top dog. So that's the psychology that exists. And as I say, the Celtics have been up close to the top for a period really of 31 or 2 years. So, no, you're absolutely right. That engenders a lot of hatred and hostility. But on the other hand, as I say, it also creates this cult following. I mean, we travel with the team in the course of our duties with them, and it's not unusual. I mean, we'll get into this godforsaken hotel in the middle of nowhere, 2 a.m, and there's a half a dozen groupies out there, little old ladies, who have found out the Celtics schedule, looking for autographs. And then after a game, now that I'm getting old and grouchy, and I mean, we're under a certain amount of pressure doing the television, and I want to go back to the hotel with 2 or 3 friends and just relax and have a beer or whatever and let the world go by. You can't do that. The lobby is absolutely inundated with people waiting for the Celtics, and the Celtics know the back doors. They sneak in and out. So by process of elimination, they finally, well, who's that? Oh, that's that old guy that used to play. Well, we couldn't get the team. Let's descend on him and bug him. So I get the residual effect. But it does, and this happens everywhere. Some of the general managers in the league have talked about this. Jerry Colangelo in Phoenix, Sal Bianchi in New York, etc. The green people, they call them. In other words, in some places, the Celtics actually have as close to a third of the house wearing green jackets and cheering for the team. Well, can you imagine what kind of a downer that is? Here you are, the home team, and yes, maybe 2/3 feel this hostility we talked about, but there's a third of the people there rooting for the Celtics.
My wife and I have partial plan season for the Bullets. At every Bullets game I go to, you walk up down before the game, past the concession stands, and every other person's got a Celtics jacket.
That's got to be demoralizing to the home team to a certain degree. Obviously, that works in the favor of the Celtics, and is a downer especially for the weaker teams. The LAs, they obviously overcome this, and they've got their own active following. But yeah, it's got to get your attention if you're the home team.
Is Miami going to win anything?
They may be the first team that goes on a schneid all year long, based on what I saw. They'll win eventually, but they won't get into double numbers, I don't think. I don't even think that, I don't know. If they win 5 or 6, I'll be surprised. That's one of the difficulties with this expansion, in my judgment at least. Although when you're selling franchises for $33 million a pop, you don't want to turn too many down, obviously. So from a business standpoint, it makes sense to expand. But from an artistic standpoint, despite the thousands and thousands and thousands of kids that play basketball, it strangely enough, unlike football that produces a lot of bodies every year for the NFL, colleges do not produce not only many bodies, they don't produce, in my judgment, more than 5 or 6 impact players every year. And of those 5 or 6, very few of them are power forwards or centers that it's the lifeblood. You need the big guy. There's 25, soon to be 27 teams. They're all looking for centers. And the last guy to get out was Elijah. I mean, good centers, Jabbar-type centers, Russell-type centers get out once every 20 years, literally. And even power forwards. Last year, who was it? Danny Manning was the number 1 pick. Now, Danny's going to be fine, but he's a small forward, basically. He's not going to turn a team around, as the Clippers are proving now, So what I'm saying is there's 27 teams soon going to be out there, frantically looking to improve themselves, and there's no talent. And the talent that is there is, you're getting specific people is left entirely up to chance. You've got to finish in the bottom 7, and they flip a coin for way you're going to choose. Right. Got to be the most frustrating thing. And these expansions, Bill, they could be in this condition for the next 20 years.
Wow. It doesn't surprise you, does it, that you're still as popular as you ever were?
Well, that's a matter of opinion, I suppose. My wife keeps calling me "Hey you," so I don't know. She's forgetting. After 38 years of marital bliss, I think, without question, in a team sport, your individual talent, whatever it might be, must be coupled with a successful vehicle. Of course, this could be said in business and whatever else, but as if it had been Bob Cousy playing for the Syracuse Nationals and hadn't won 11 out of 13 champions. This is what's added the longevity to my identity in the sports world, or inclusion on whatever 3 or 4 SI covers, or this kind of exposure that I was fortunate to get. If it hadn't been Bob Cousy, captain of the Celtics, who won 11 out of 13, or I was around for 6, so the vehicle, the fact that what we're talking about in the book, really, the fact that the vehicle was not only so stable but so spectacular. If I have a few beers and start boasting about the old days, which I try to avoid because it's such a bore, as you know, nobody wants to hear about the good old days. But what I focus on is the fact that I played a small role in the most successful sports dynasty that the country's ever produced, really. No one will ever do that again. Given a pampered, spoiled, overpaid, overglorified jock today, no one is ever going to win. Never mind, as I say, that unit won 11 out of 13 years in a highly competitive area. That was not only the first time that will ever occur, but it will never occur again. Now, after that last championship in '69, 18 years went by before it was broken. L.A. finally repeated. But in any team sport, for the reasons we talked about a moment ago, in my judgment, the athlete is bigger, better, stronger in every way than he was 25 years ago. He just doesn't have anywhere near the determination that, if we had an advantage, it was that we all came charging out of those ghettos, hungry to kill and do it again, And that's what created, other than a lot of talented players and Red Auerbach, that's what created the championships. But you're never going to see that again, in my judgment, in team sports. The jock will fight very hard to get to the top of the hill today, and obviously he does. He won't fight as hard to stay on top or anywhere near as much as we did. So being part of that vehicle has created whatever, exposure or longevity that I've had.
And also, a lot of players don't seem to have the loyalty to the team that they once had.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's money. That's bottom line, Bill. We really had, and that's one of the subjective things that I key on in this book in terms of what is Celtic mystique, what's created this foundation and this dynasty is relationships between people and between player and coach and player and management. Today, with the agent, in between now, before your local all-world or all-sandbox or all-American kid gets to the pro team and the agent says, "Hey, sign here, babe. $33 million for 10 years. Is that all right? And by the way, I had to fight tooth and nail with these SOBs to get this for you. You know, they didn't want to give you an A because he bills this in to make himself look good, and now sign here. And so the point is, there's a hostility built in before most players, and never mind the unions. You know, we've seen what football and baseball has gone through with the strikes and threatened strikes, etc. So that all of us, you're coming into a situation that demands cohesion, unselfishness, harmony, and with this built-in hostility that you feel towards management, or sometimes the coach if he participates in negotiations or something. So it's incredible, you know, for organizations that their lifeblood is 11, 12 guys or whatever it is in football, you know, hockey, etc., working together. Everything possible is done before the guy even gets to the team to create this disharmony and disunion. Yeah. So, yes.
It's wonder they can play it all.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Bob Cousy is 96 now, but still wears the Celtics green as a marketing consultant for the team. Now you can get your copy of Cousy on the Celtic Mystique by Bob Cousy by tapping the link in our show notes, by clicking the link in the description below if you're listening to this on YouTube, or by going to our website, heardeverything.com. We may earn an Amazon commission if you make a purchase. Heardeverything.com is where you can also hear my 1991 interview with Celtics' great Red Auerbach.
Many times I wouldn't make a trade, even though the player I can get is a little better than my player. Why? Because I might disturb the chemistry.
And my 1994 conversation with yet another Celtic standout, Bill Walton.
I played for 6 Hall of Fame coaches. They did not ever talk about basketball. They always taught me about life and the values that I would need as a person to be successful.
And we post new episodes of Now I've Heard Everything every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you can find us everywhere you find podcasts. And thank you so much for listening. Next time on Now I've Heard Everything, she won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2011 for her work in helping end the Liberian Civil War. My 2011 interview with Lema Bowie.
When the peace agreement was finally signed, we were cautious. We could not celebrate too much. And that kind of caution is what we've been treading with over the last 8 years. So we don't allow ourselves to celebrate too long.
That's next time on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson.